What is going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. BobbyFi back with my man, Eric Sheets Haber. We are coming at you with some baseball today. We also have a 4:30 Eastern time show on QLTV, so I wanted to remind you of that. And we got a bigger baseball slate. I had a good night last night. Sheets had a good night. We had a real nice basketball night. I actually had a good baseball night as well, but didn't play huge. Got my daughter visiting with me, which is great. But I don't want to be too distracted all the time when she's around because stuff can be consuming if you get too into it. Anyway, I'm excited for this baseball slate. I'm not going to be playing huge tonight, but Sheets, any sort of first thoughts, and you want to give us sort of a quick rundown of your day yesterday?
Yeah, so baseball wasn't for me. I took a really big stand on Cole, which was, I don't want to say dead, but it was difficult, right? After the first inning or two, and then I did as I mentioned, play some Atlanta, but then I also mentioned on the BetQL show later, pivoted to just way too much Cleveland. They basically got shut out by Kansas City, so that was on me. But process was fine, execution was okay, just results didn't quite pan out. But I'm kind of psyched to get into I think I have a pretty good idea what I want to do today. And there are certain things that you can do, so I'm kind of excited about going over today's slate, actually.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it reminded me, yesterday, obviously we're going to have the same type of deal today. But, just when these Rockies are in these games, like the ownership, I understand that a lot of people play cash games and that these plays make the most sense. I don't think you needed anybody from that game yesterday by the end of it. And I think that you find that being the case. I mean, yeah, sure, you could have used some guys. Some guys were okay. But there was other guys at that same position who basically had done that at everywhere else I looked.
And meanwhile, I didn't see what happened to him, but I would have been a little tilted because one of my punts, aside from Marquez, was gonna play Garrett Richards. I think he shut them out through like 4 innings. They took him out.
Yeah, I don't know why they took him out exactly. I didn't watch the game, but that was weird to me too because he was dominant.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, let's get into it. Let's go game by game. So why don't we pull up your screen when you get the chance, and we will start with whatever the first one is on the DK slate because it's often different.
Yeah. So first one I have is Tampa against New York.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I just don't I don't think Tanaka's just it has it in him to pitch the amount that you need him to put up big fantasy point games anymore. When you're like begging for him to get 6 innings, it's or 70 pitches or something like that. It's kind of tough. It's kind of rough. So I'm not gonna play any of him, and I wasn't gonna play any of Trevor Richards. Also, I used to play him every once in a while, but I'm not getting Tim today, and I honestly wasn't gonna get too much of the hitters either. Except, I mean, again, just to look at kind of one-offs again. I commented on this yesterday. Like Kevin Kiermaier's like priced like a minor leaguer. I mean, he's good. So he's 2,300. Choi, go right back to him again at 3,300. So it's kind of one-offs. And then if you need it, if Michael Perez gets to start a catcher, maybe a 2K catcher. But I didn't really have too much interest in the Tampa hitting. And on the Yankee side, I didn't really get so much of the Yankees either. I'll always play Aaron Hicks if I have to, but I don't think I have to. And it was going to be, I don't want to say cross-off game, but I guess it's where it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm not particularly interested in this game. I certainly don't mind if you want to take some Yankee bats. Like I think that there's some guys that are certainly fine plays, but it's just I feel like there's better spots. I actually don't even mind like a little stack because the way they're priced. You've got Hicks at 3.6. You've got Ford at 3.2 who could be batting in the middle of the order tonight. Now, sure, there's not really platoon risk anymore once you start the game because they don't really have all these bats anymore. I mean, everybody's so cheap that I actually think as a stack, I'm curious where the ownership comes in. I think it's going to be pretty low. And I think Voit and Urshela and Sanchez are all interesting. I think LeMahieu is where it gets a little bit of the expensive part of it for a guy who doesn't, historically hasn't flashed a ton of power, although the last couple of years has been a little better. But you could talk me into that. I mean, we'll see it as we go through. Taubman, too, is also really cheap. I don't mind playing some of these guys. I just don't – they weren't the first stack I thought of, and I also don't think it's wrong to mini stack them or play any of those guys I mentioned. If I had to pick any, Ford, Voit, Sanchez, Urshela, that's sort of the order I would go with. Oh, and I'm sorry, Ford, Hicks, Voit, Urshela, Sanchez.
Okay. Chicago, Pittsburgh, John Lester 9,400 is kind of amusing to say that.
He's always like this, and I don't get it. Like when
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't get it either. So, and I'm not really too interested in Chad Kuhl. So from the hitting side, the Cubs, I do have a little interest in the Cubs. They're not my favorites, but Schwarber, Ian Happ, Jason Hayward at 2,300 in this gets into this game. So kind of an overall kind of cheap outfield. Even Jason Kipnis is cheap. So I think the Cubs are fine. Depends on how many you go to. I do have the Cubs as my main secondary stack, I guess the best way to describe it, on FanDuel just for now. But I'm certainly willing to revisit it. And just because Baez kind of fit in there kind of nicely with what else I wanted to do. So Chicago's fine. I mean, there's a lot of teams to choose from here, and I think they're one of them. I guess that's as lukewarm of a recommendation as I can make for you.
Yeah, I'm not really interested on this slate. I mean, again, and maybe I will be by the end of it, but I don't like to play the Cubs in downgrades in parks. They're all finely priced, but there's a reason they are, and getting Bryant back in the lineup should make them more formidable in general. I get the argument for it. I just personally don't find myself particularly interested in anything on the other side. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to figure out who I really want. And again, another one that I could see changing my mind on by the end of the day. I guess if I had to prioritize, Baez number one, Hayward because of the price number two, and then Caratini's a cheap catcher if you want to make a mini stack. Other than that, Happ, Bryant at third base. Well, I guess Bryant has multi-eligibility, so Bryant would be ahead of these other guys, the Schwarbers and Rizzo. I think I just am not as into these guys, man. Schwarber and Rizzo, Rizzo's a really good real life hitter, but it doesn't necessarily translate to DFS success a lot of the time because he walks so much. Although he's walked a lot less this year. Then again, he's also hit a lot less this year. For me, I think this is going to be a spot where some chalk's going to go, and I'm going to try to avoid that for the most part. If I'm wrong, I might revisit it later. But right now, honestly, the player I have the most interest in this game, and I talked about him yesterday, he's the reason, even though he didn't have a monster game, but he was the only guy in his price range at his position that really came through because he had I was hoping for a big game for him. He had a home run in the first inning, unfortunately, and I was ready for some more. But Eric Gonzalez, I just keep reiterating this. This kid's hitting the ball hard. If you see him getting the platoon switch against almost anybody, batting at the top of the order, he's 3.5 in that sort of weird in between. Everybody pays all the way down or up at shortstop or second base these days, or third base too, which he's also eligible for. I think as a shortstop play, he's a really good one against Leicester, and I have some serious interest in him. I also think that you have a catcher. This is what's going to keep happening. We're going to have to keep trying to figure out what's going to happen with you got a cute catcher in Stallings. We have to figure out what's going to happen with Pittsburgh going forward because you don't want to play them, and then you start looking at the guys, and they're so cheap. Like Josh Bell being 3.5, I understand he's been awful, but I mean he's hit 2 home runs in the last 3 games. He's 3.5, but do you want to use your first base spot there? Maybe not, but a little mini stack, I don't mind it. I guess it'd be Stallings, Bell, and Gonzalez that I have the most interest in. Newman and Frazier with the lack of power. I don't really want to stack this team. I don't really want to play Moran in the lefty-lefty matchup. But I do sort of like a little bit of all these guys. So I think I will have some exposure. You've also got Brian Hayes, the prospect who should be coming up today. He's a flat 2K at third base. So this could be a spot where you look for some value. And what's funny is what happened last night, because I think the projected run total, no one went to Pittsburgh for value except for Stallings at catcher. So all these other weird price guys like Eric Gonzalez was 4% owned on a small slate where he actually made a lot of sense to play. So let's I say let's give those guys a shot. Gonzalez, Bell, and Stallings being my favorites, but I don't mind if you want to throw Brian Hayes in or maybe just play 2 of them or something like that. But that's the guys I'm interested in.
Yeah, so it was interesting. So yesterday as I was building my lineups, I got down in some of them where I had one spot left, and Gonzalez just fit perfectly, so I just threw him in. And usually, it's so funny. I talk about this a lot, that sometimes the pricing models just kind of just lead me to just do things that end up being really chalky. And so that's so funny. When I put him in, I'm sure everybody's just going to think it's the same thing. And then when I saw that he was 0% owned or whatever, I'm like, ooh, that's fun. You know, so like sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. The other guy also, I didn't know about the new prospect coming up from the Pirates, but just one guy that you didn't. I don't know if he's not playing or whatever, but Cole Tucker is still 2,500 in the outfield also. So if you want to include him as
the other one batting ninth.
Oh, okay.
I think you'll get the other, but I mean, still that shouldn't write him off. You know what I mean? Necessarily, like, you know, it's one of those things where if we're gonna play the cheap guys, I kind of would rather play the cheap guys who are a little higher in the order. But Cole Tucker is like as a one-off. I don't think I would do it, but I think as a 3-man or a 2-man where you're just using it as your value savings mini stack, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so it seems to me, can we go ahead?
Yeah, let's do it.
So it seems to me that the various constructions that are available on this slate are going to be, you know, one of the guys from this game with Valdez, one of the guys from this game with Lindholm, or if you want to play like bigger bats, play Lindholm and Valdez. Now those are like going to be the chalky constructions. Now there are ways to pivot off, whatever, but I really thought that both these guys were going to be like more popular than they are.
Nola's going to be popular.
Right, but what's
Corbin won't
explain to me what's wrong with Corbin? I don't quite get it because
the Philly team is really good against lefties. At least they profile really well against lefties. That's mostly. I mean, first of all,
okay.
The Philly lineup is better than the Washington lineup as they stand currently. I'm not saying that if Washington had everybody, these guys we talk about a lot because they're cheap are not really good players anymore. Like Adam Eaton is fine. He's a middle of the road baseball player. These are not like guys who really scare you. What's worried me about Corbin is he's had a little bit of his walk patterns again. You know, it's a little wild sometimes. Definitely given, you know, has the home run issue. But it's not that his strikeout rate has been bad because it hasn't. It's been good. But we haven't seen that really big game from him. We also get him on a back-to-back game versus Philly. This is the last team he faced. So it worries me a little bit. But having him without ownership, let's go. You know, these guys just faced each other. We just saw this exact same matchup.
Yeah.
So I think that this is going to be really a tough call. And I think that the just complete lack of ownership or projected ownership on Corbin, because if you go down that lineup of Philly, it is kind of scary, especially 1 through 6. Even Didi I include in that. And then you got Baum even down at 8. Gosselin's been really good this year, at least as a contact hitter. It worries me a little bit. They do have strikeouts in them. They're going to make you pitch, though. It's not the kind of guy – I don't usually like to take high-priced pitchers against these Phillies unless they're incredibly efficient because they will make you pitch. These guys take pitches, especially Hoskins, Harper, Real Muto, Didi. I don't know. I'm sort of deciding between this. Nola clearly seems to me like the much better play, but I don't know how much of I end up with. I do think this lineup is much, much weaker on the national side. And the lefties, which is really all you're afraid of with Nola, you've got Soto, Thames, who strikes out all the time, Adam Eaton, who's not going to scare anybody, and Luis Garcia. That's not a lot of scary lefties. That's 4 lefties and only one that I would call an above average major league player. So I guess having said that, Nola's clearly the better play, but you can certainly make the pivot if you want to in tournaments.
Okay. And Cabrera's a switch hitter too, so he's not the worst.
Yeah, I guess I'm sorry. I should have mentioned Cabrera. I didn't.
I don't have any interest in the hitters from this game. So we can, if you want, we can move on.
I have mild interest in the Phillies.
Okay.
And I think it's probably just going to be playing maybe a Real Muto who seems to be finding his stroke. Andrew McCutchen, who I mentioned, is finding his stroke yesterday. You know, and if you want to make a little 2 or 3 man, I don't mind it. I think it's going to be contrarian, which is nice. These Phillies, like when they face a lefty, are so chalky, it's almost impossible to ever play them. They have an almost 5 projected run total in good hitting conditions at home. I think we can definitely play at some Phillies. I think I would just leave out, if you play a stack, I would leave out Gosselin and Quinn. But if you play them separately, like I think the guys you want to prioritize would be just the obvious righties, McCutchen, Hoskins. Real Muto is probably going to be unowned at 5,100 or very low owned at 5,100, and he's a really good play. It's just hard to get to him. But those would be the guys you focus on. And if you want to play Harper, I just think it's the wrong time to try and do the lefty-lefty against a good pitcher for 6K. That's probably where I would draw the line.
Okay, so Atlanta-Boston to me is a really, really important game. Important game for me. It's a very interesting game for me because I have interest in Atlanta on both sides of the equation. Let's put it that way. So first of all, from a pitching perspective, you're going to have Josh Lindholm, who's going to be 8 million% owned. Okay. And Valdez, who's going to be 8 million% owned, but focus on Lindholm for just a second. Okay. You have the Ian Anderson at basically the same price, and Lindholm, who, yeah, he's going against Detroit, but he hasn't, what's he done? 5 innings? You know what I mean? It's not like he's not like he's freaking Nolan Ryan out there. And I think that this Ian Anderson is a pretty natural pivot that I might be interested in. Just in the name of just not taking the chalk construction. We've had some pretty decent luck attacking Boston with pitchers, if you want to know the truth. And so that's the first thing is I do have a decent amount of interest in Anderson. Again, depending on what type of lineup I'm creating, I have no problem using him as a pivot off of a really high-owned Lindholm. The other thing is from a hitting perspective, I mean, I just have also, I don't want the whole theme of this season to be Boston sucks. I mean, but you know what? I mean, I'll just keep playing hitters against them. They can't get anybody out. They have bullpen can't get anybody out, and I'll go right back to Atlanta. God forbid Acuna plays again today, comes back to play. I'll be interested in him, but even in the absence of that, I mean, I'll go right back to, I don't know, Duvall, Ozuna, Freeman, Riley. Your man Markakis even had a couple of fantasy points yesterday. Coming out of there. I don't know.
I'm just going to go ahead and say if you're playing Nick Markakis on big slates and you're asking a guy to 3 doubles, like whatever, man, go ahead.
No, I got you.
It's just an overall game theory thing that there aren't guys I believe you should cross out, but there are guys you have to cross out.
Okay. And then Camargo, whatever it is. So I think Atlanta from both sides of this are just really, really in play. I did not get – now, again, it could go both ways. Like, if for whatever reason, for example, Ian Anderson became like the chalky guy, which he's not going to, then I really would. I would look at the Boston guys also, But that's kind of where I'm at here.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that I think that the early projections on Ian Anderson are way off, but I hope that they're not because I'm totally with you. I have no problem. If this guy's going to go out there and be great against the Yankees, why the hell do I think he's going to have a problem with the Red Sox? So, I'm not saying that it goes that way all the time, but why wouldn't we take that shot? I also think you're going to get kind of weirdly low ownership on everyone except for Freeman because of the pricing, except for it depends on where Riley hits. I could see him becoming really popular again. Riley and Duvall, they paid off big in my big buy-in last night. Those nice little home runs from those guys.
Riley was 48% owned on FanDuel.
Was he really?
Yeah.
I mean, he was like the best play by the end of the day when I got it in 5th. And he's been just red hot. He's also probably the second best hitter at this point, or third best maybe. I guess third or fourth best maybe. Ozuna's pretty good. So yeah, it's the usual suspects for them. I'm with you. I like the stack. I'm a little, me. I'm always a little hesitant to stack bullpen games. But all they have to do in that case is make myself a nice little 4-man. And by the way, I just want to keep reiterating all these baseball ones. You can keep saying, man, you're always up there in these baseball ones, or I'm cashing up all the time in my lineups. The reason I'm doing that, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to just cash. I want to win them, but it's because I'm 4-man stacking. If I was stacking 5 in most of these lineups, they would have, I would have blanks in one of those spots, and it would give enough room to do some other things. So maybe as a 3 or 4-man here, but I think the priorities are Freeman, Ozuna, Riley, Duvall, Swanson would be the priorities, and then Camargo's the nice little value, and maybe he gets a different spot in the order depending on how the lineup rolls out. Yesterday we saw it different. And then you never know. You might get Acuna back, although I don't see that happening right now. But anyway, we'll see. I like it. I'm on board. Travis d'Arnaud's price is kind of absurd. I think if you're going to play 4.7 for Travis d'Arnaud, maybe you just take the Real Muto versus the tough matchup. I don't know. I think he's just so much better of a hitter than Travis d'Arnaud is. But yeah, I'm on board with Anderson, and I'm on board with the stack from Atlanta. Where I always run into problems with Atlanta is trying to play one-offs when I'm not stacking them, because Freeman's always expensive as a one-off. So you can do it, but it's, he walks a lot too. Ozuna makes sense usually the most, but he's usually pretty popular, and I hate playing chalky guys as one-offs, but he's not going to be crazy tonight. I think Riley and Duvall and Ozuna would be like the realistically desirable one-offs or 2-man groups you'd look at.
Okay. Do you want to move on?
Yep.
So Mets Baltimore is really going to be the death of me, because at very first glance at the slate, I'm like, all right, this is literally the easiest slate of all time. I'm just going to just take the Mets and just be done with it. You know what I mean? I really wish lock was like 5 hours ago, because I would just put it in and just never thought about it ever again. I would take, I mean, like, you name all these lefties, right? Nemo, Conforto, McNeil, then throw in Alonso, just a Cano, who's a freaking genius, freaking resurgent Robinson Cano this year.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that seems to be the easy way to play. And then I'm like, maybe actually Wojo is not bad at 5,500.
No,
on the other side. No, this is what happens to my freaking brain, right? And then I'm like, okay, forget that. So now I'm back on the Mets as probably being my top stack. And then I see like they're changing the Met pitchers or whatever it is. And before we finish this review, I want to come back to the idea that Baltimore just wins the slate. Just taking the Baltimore hitting side. They're going to be 0.0% owned, I think. And they project for crap. But it wasn't too long ago that they were putting runs on the board. And I don't know who the Mets guy is they're throwing out there, but I mean, it's not Tom Seaver, you know, and it's not Jacob deGrom, and it's not Noah Syndergaard. Right? Let's put it that way. So, nor is it Steven Matz. So I think Baltimore is really in play, as you know, in kind of the lottery ticket tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you a little bit. I don't mind both sides of these things. I don't even think it's that much of a lottery thing. Like, it's a pretty good spot. Like, there's nothing to be afraid of Ariel Dorado and the Mets bullpen. They're not like, I'm not going to say this is a terrible bullpen or anything, because they've actually been pretty decent for the most part. But I don't have I'm trying to figure out if we actually know who this is the starting pitcher. I don't
know yet.
My guess is that Gerardo is not going to start this game. And then you might get into a little bit of a Gazelle, like decent enough pitchers. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't even know what their rotation is right now, but certainly if it was stacked like this, I don't mind it. Chance Cisco is like, they're all way too expensive. That's why.
Who's going to play Anthony Santander at 52?
Nobody's going to play any of these guys because they're priced as if they were the best hitting team in baseball or they're playing at Coors. They're the highest priced team. Okay, so you can make that argument, but then you better get some production. You can't really.
Yeah, no kidding. Right?
Iglesias is like a 2K player who's 4.1 hitter. He's a good defender. And then the Mets are great, but they're gonna be really popular.
They are, right? I mean, I wasn't hallucinating, right? Okay, all right, forget it then. Because when I was looking,
I want them though. I want some of these guys, and I think that maybe we can find, because of Conforto's price. I think Nimmo goes low owned. That's okay. Why I put this. Alonso's going to be the most popular player. He's got to be, because he's too cheap. He's so too cheap. I think Cano could be low owned because there's some value at second base. I think Dominic Smith is always low owned, but he's not my kind of a DFS guy, although I have a lot of I have some love for that guy. Jeff McNeil has gotten to that price, and he's been really struggling, but like I would take a shot at 3.4K at second base, you know what I mean? Speaking of cheap second baseman. Or if you want to get different, maybe you play Guillorme, as a part of a 5-man, or play Rosario in the 9-hole if he is in fact in the 9-hole. I think there's ways you can do it. The bullpen's so bad for Baltimore. As much as like I don't think Asher's like the worst pitcher in baseball, I mean, I can't ignore the results that he gets hit pretty hard. He walks some guys. Now when it's like the ultimate chalk, maybe you just avoid it, but I don't know. I personally, I think you can stack, or at least mini stack or get pieces of this without having to play the Alonso, Conforto, who are great plays, but are going to be extremely high owned.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yep.
What do we have next? Detroit, Milwaukee?
Yeah, I think this is going to be our spot here.
Okay. So Lindblom is very chalky. I guess he's fine. He's playing Detroit. He's up against Detroit, but as I just kind of alluded to earlier, it's I don't know. I just don't think I'm going to do it.
It seems odd that he hasn't had one game as good as Ian Anderson, and Ian Anderson is a top prospect, and Lindblom is a guy who was pitching in the KBO, and he's going to be the chalk.
Yeah, I just don't think I'm going to do it. On
I'm with you.
Now the real question is what are you going to do about it? In other words, do you want to get really nasty and take some Detroit guys, or is it just enough to pivot off of him with Dean Anderson, and that's enough leverage?
I mean, Detroit had good hitters, like sure, but like, we don't have anybody.
I don't think I'm going to take any Detroit guys. Now, on the Milwaukee side, well, I don't like the Detroit pitchers. On the Milwaukee side, I mean, you interested in these guys as hitting? I really didn't have much interest in them, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I never have any luck like attacking Detroit for some reason. Like they throw these bullpen guys out there, and the next thing you know, it's in the freaking 8th inning, and then I haven't gotten anywhere. I don't know what to do. If you were going to play Milwaukee guys, you would go with Christian Yelich and then Smoke, but you don't even know what guy who's coming in or whatever. I can't do platooning. Hura is great, but he's 5,300. I don't know.
So I'm a little, the problem with the lineup for me, and the guy who did kill me in my what ended up being a Milwaukee stack, which was not my plan when I started the day yesterday.
Yeah.
And also, I did get afraid of the weather. I want to throw that out there. It's possible I cost myself money, but it's possible I didn't because I made some of my pivots work. So whatever. I mean, I didn't end up with Rhys Hoskins, who was in both my big buy-in lineups, and he wasn't in either by the end of it. So that sucks. But I did have other guys who were even better than he was. I think Narvaez still at 3.4 is still reasonable. Ben Gamble at 2.6 is super cheap. Brian Braun at 3.9 is extremely reasonable. Justin Smoke at 3.8 is very reasonable. There's a lot of other ways. The problem is the Urias the lack of power is annoying. I'm sure he has more than we've seen, but it's been frustrating to play this guy. I'm into it. I think you're going to get a low-owned stack against the Tigers bullpen, and they've been bad. I don't love stacking against bullpen, so it's sort of how I feel about Atlanta right now. But those are two teams I'm into. I mean, those are three teams I'm into, and it's the obvious. I mentioned the other guys that are nice values, but you can obviously play Yelich and Hera are two to me of like Yelich especially is one of the better plays on the slate. He's just too cheap for him. He should be the 6K range.
All right, you want to?
That's where I'm at. I do think that I have 3 stacks that I've got so far that I'm pretty into, and we'll figure out which ones are the best by the end of it.
Well, so here's another one. So here's I looked at this like last night again before I went to sleep, and I said, okay, this is where it's at. Matt Harvey's pitching against Cleveland, and people are going to. This is what people are going to do. They're going to take Valdez and Lindblom, and then just load up on Cleveland or load up on Coors or some combination of the two. And I don't know. maybe they're not going to do it. Maybe these guys are too expensive, but they certainly look certainly logical. Matt Harvey hasn't gotten anybody out in a while, and you can get. Well, let's start with Reyes at 4,100. These guys are expensive, but and Ramirez 5,400, Lindor 5,300. I guess that's what makes it difficult. But Naquin's still 2,600 if you want to try to make that work. And this is certainly and coming off the game where they did nothing, right? I like to play teams off of stuff like that. It's certainly a pitcher upgrade, whoever they were playing against yesterday, with Matt Harvey. So I definitely think Cleveland's in play, and I would rather. I mean, I got to look at ownership, but for example, I would rather if I was going to go double cheap at pitcher, I'd rather pay up for Cleveland than for Coors. I think. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it feels like a good. To be honest, I'm a little surprised that the run total is not a little bit higher.
Okay.
I like it. I think it's going to be popular. I'm wondering where it stacks up with the Mets. I think it'll probably be in a similar type of range. The problem is these guys, the Indians, are a little harder to afford. But the weird part is I think that there will be guys who will be overlooked in this spot that I have the most interest in, which number one play for me would be right off the bat would be Reyes. I just like the righty power against guys who have always struggled with righty power with reverse splits. So I think Reyes would be a high priority for me. I also just don't think he's going to be owned as much. And Naquin, I think, is a solid play, but he'll be much more owned than Reyes. I mean, he's 2.6, a lot different price, obviously. The funny part is Harvey's been getting killed by lefties lately too. Like, it's not like it's been everybody, but it was righties for a while. Yeah, I think that you're going to get some, actually, maybe it won't be that popular because you got the crazy high prices on Ramirez, Lindor, and then you could play Cesar Hernandez. I think I would be looking more at Lindor, Ramirez. Well, Reyes is obviously my number one. And then you've got Naquin and Naylor as your value savers. Okay, I'm on board. I think Cleveland, and you have an actual – I actually think you can make – Cleveland probably has a better stack argument than the other teams that we mentioned just because of the –
You think they're better? You think they're better than the Mets?
Yeah.
They have to. I mean, isn't Reyes at 4,100 just like so much better than Nemo at 4,400, for example? I mean,
at all the ownership too. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I don't know that he's that much better of a real life hitter, but the power upside is all we care about anyway. But
exactly.
So I'm in on this, and I think maybe it does get sneaky lower owned than you think. So I'm in. I'm totally in, and also. But I do think that the Naylor and Naquin and Naylor, if they're both in the lineup, assume that they'll be somewhat owned. But I don't mind that. I mean, when you're getting into the 2Ks and you're going to make the full stack, you can play those guys.
Okay, so White Sox against Minnesota. This is a weird, not weird game, but this is a game between two teams that, if I were always playing a bunch of lineups, I'd always make sure to have some of both of them in. You know what I mean? Like, these are those two teams, and no one's going to own either of them today. Now, Keuchel is not exactly the easiest guy to get to. But by the way, good call by both of us actually on the Giolito thing. And it's funny when you deal with strikeout pitchers. You said they could probably get to him, and yet still he had like enough strikeouts where he wasn't terrible. Yeah. Also,
especially because Garrett Cole made him look like Cy Young.
Right. Exactly. If I was playing enough lineups, I'd throw one stack of the White Sox in or throw one stack of Minnesota in. But aside from that, I don't think I'm going to get to them. I will say that that Nomar Mazara is really cheap on the White Sox. And on Minnesota, nobody really in particular. So, if I probably just try to stack them, and if I had to, you know what I mean? It's kind of dirty for me not to have either of these teams, but that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I don't know what to say because I'm kind of with you. I'm telling you what though, my guy Buxton should be back in the lineup tonight. So I'm going to have to get myself at least one Twins stack, just because Buxton is going to be in the lineup. But at least in a cheap buy-in, I don't mind either side of this, but either side of the hitting. But I'm just not going to realistically do it. That's it.
Well, what's the deal? What's the deal with Pineda? What's his story?
He's a good pitcher, I mean, he hasn't pitched in a long time, but he's given up hard contact before, and the White Sox can certainly get to anybody. So they completely make sense as a stack. But they're expensive, and there's other good stacks that are expensive. So I'm personally not as into them. That's where I'm at. But I get it.
Okay, so it's really interesting as we go to Texas Houston, the way perceptions and the way life changes in DFS. So I forgot what day it was, but 4 games ago, or three starts ago, 2 starts ago, 1 start ago, whatever it was, Valdez was 0% owned, and we talked about him during this thing, and you're like, why does nobody realize that Valdez is just going off? No one's going to play him. He's projecting for 15 points somehow, and he's basically got a 20-point floor. And I don't know why everybody's not playing him. And he went off low, very, very low ownership, and that's where it is. And now he's going to be 65% owned, and he's probably just plain old too cheap on DraftKings, as the kids like to say. And for example, he's, to me, is a lot more difficult to fade than Lindblom. But they're going to be lineups where I don't have him. They're going to be lineups where I don't have him on FanDuel. They're going to be lineups where I don't have him on DraftKings. He certainly has just done whatever he's had to do to turn himself into a really, really good pitcher. But, it's really, really high ownership. It's baseball. And I'm just not going to have 100% of him. As a matter of fact, just for fun, I might do a little, maybe one-off with, I don't know, maybe Joey Gallo, maybe a little cheaper guy, maybe Nick Solak or some crap like that, just for fun. Whenever you have like a 60-70% pitcher, it's always a little bit of fun out there that you can try to participate in if you want to. So that's where I'm at. He certainly, grades out to be a great play. If you tell me, give me one guy, point per dollar pitcher on the slate, who's going to get there, I would say Valdez by a lot. And if I were playing cash, he would certainly be the guy. But I'm not going to have him in every lineup on DraftKings or on FanDuel, just for ownership purposes. And aside from those kind of like leverage plays on text I brought up for a second, I don't really have much interest in much of the hitting in this game either. So what do you think?
Yeah, so I think Houston is the best stack on the slate.
Oh, let's go. All right.
I don't understand the ownership either. I'm looking at it more. That's partly why I think they're the best stack on the slate.
Okay.
George Springer is 4,400 and is usually 58 to 6,200. Like literally with what they price people at. He would be normally in that range. I know he struggled. Michael Brantley is 3,200. Kyle Tucker is 40.
Diaz at 2,100?
What's that?
Diaz at 2,100?
Diaz is 2,100. And if he starts against a righty and they're going to use a righty reliever, that's a pretty good sign that he probably is staying in the game.
Okay.
Josh Reddick is 3.2 if you want to fill him out. Then you've got the expensive guys that are out, way too weirdly priced, like Altuve, which is oddly probably going to be the highest owned because of the position. It's so weird to me. Like, I don't know. I don't mind I used to never feel comfortable playing this team without playing Altuve. And I can look through it and just quickly see
this guy
has hit 1 home run or 2 home. What does he have this year? 2 home runs and 500 at bats. Yeah, no interest. I don't need to go there. And look, he still might end up in a lineup or two. If I like the stack, obviously, I'm not going to just completely block out number 2 hitter in all lineups. But it does feel weird. And I mean, maybe even more than a stack. I think that specifically Springer, Brantley, Tucker, either Diaz or Reddick. I think that's the stack the way I would do it. 4 or 5 man. That's it. Period. And I love it. I don't understand how a team with the highest run total outside of Coors is projected to be unowned.
Maybe it's what you said. Maybe it's because Altuve is 5,200, and I don't know.
But Altuve is the one who's projected with the highest ownership. I'm sure it's going to change, but it just feels a little weird. If it changes, I'll jump right off. And to get ownership, I mean, honestly, I think that in terms of power, probably the Mets, Milwaukee and Cleveland have a little more power upside. But I think that if, you're also dealing with higher ownership and even higher prices in most cases. So that's
what do you think of, what are you going to do with Valdez?
I like Valdez a ton. I don't know how. Honestly, I actually feel better about him than I do any pitcher on the slate, and I don't know how to change it. So. Well,
sure, but what kind of ownership are you willing to eat with him?
It doesn't matter if I'm going to play different lineups.
Okay.
I never care about ownership with pitchers that much. I really don't. I think people make a huge mistake by trying. It works. Like, it's great when you have like yesterday's kind of pivots is a great one because you can pivot to Giolito, who's an awesome pitcher. You know what I mean? But to try and find these other guys, I'll just take my pitching points. If you can guarantee me 20 points for my pitchers every night, I'll just go ahead and figure out my lineups,
Okay.
But I mean, look, yeah, if there was another pivot, I don't really have a pivot either for him. So like that.
Have you tried making FanDuel lineups?
Not yet.
Okay. You're gonna be tempted to leave money on the table with him.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, if you like Valdez, I
don't need to play him on FanDuel.
Oh, why not?
Because I always play the top pitcher on FanDuel.
You don't think so? That's what I'm asking. So you don't think Valdez is raw points the best pitcher?
I think maybe he gets there enough, but he certainly doesn't have anywhere near the highest ceiling.
Okay.
That's just my take. I mean, maybe he does. No, I don't think he does. He's never had. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he does.
Okay, so let's talk about San Francisco, Colorado. Which, by the way, I don't think that I don't think that this game is going to be as high owned as it could be. Okay. I just don't. I don't think that San Francisco is going to be as highly owned as maybe they would have otherwise. And it kind of scares me a little bit that I'm not going to play too much of it. I do like the Colorado side, and that's going to be the chalkiest side, I imagine. you have Hilliard again at 20, at 2,600, but Story and Arenado are just, really, really strong plays. And then the other guys I like, the other guys we like to play, like Murphy. Who else? Yeah, Tapia. We talked about him yesterday.
Not him.
Oh, you don't like him?
I don't play him. I don't play guys who don't hit home runs.
Yeah. I don't really mind it in Colorado. That's good. Play the gaps and play the doubles and play the whatever.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, if I just named George Springer's 4,400, the odds of me playing Ramel Tapia above him is never.
So I don't know if I'm gonna get to much of this game, but I guess Colorado would be my favorite. Now I don't think I'm gonna play Gausman today. He could end up breaking the slate again.
He can be good, but I don't think he can break the slate.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he's only whatever his price is, he's right at that same freaking price range as.
Yeah, but like Tyler, I mean, he hasn't had as good as he's been this year. He hasn't had one game that Ian Anderson had in his only start.
Yeah, I'm not messing with that. So I guess Story and Arenado are my favorite plays from that side, even though it's righty. I guess they're my favorite. I would throw in if you were going to play other, maybe who's the catcher? Is Walters going to be the catcher? Maybe I don't know.
Can't play him. I don't think.
You don't like him?
I mean, there's just guys who I know from the years of playing that you just don't play.
Okay. Can I compare him with Markakis? And then
they're similar except for that Tony Walters plays in Colorado and still hits like one or two home runs.
So we're going to do Walters, Markakis, Tapia 3-man, and then we'll.
There you go.
And we'll throw in who's the other one? Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols, and then
there you go. If you can get exactly.
And John Lester pitching, and then we're in good shape. Okay. All right. So on the San Francisco side, the only guy that I might be asking for trouble not playing more of these guys if they're not going to be owned, but they just kind of have to be. My favorite guy is going to be Dickerson at 3,600. I don't know, Belt and Longoria. I expected these guys to be all like 5K. You know what I mean? Like whether it was right or not, I just expected they, as usual. Last time San Francisco was in Colorado, all these guys were like 5,500.
I know.
And I don't know, man. Should we not just be playing these guys?
Maybe. I mean,
John Gray? I don't know.
I think the ownerships are just flat out wrong.
Okay. All right.
That way, I don't. If you ask me, I think you're going to see the highest concentration of ownership you've seen on a game in a while.
Really?
That's not a bigger slate. Yeah. Because I think that you're going to see 6 players in this game 25% higher or more owned.
That's so interesting.
And I think Arenado is one of them. I think Story is one of them. I think Yastrzemski is one of them. I think Dickerson is one of them. I think Longoria is one of them. I think Belt is one of them. And then I think there's a chance Joey Bart and Charlie Blackmon or Tapia could end up in that range. Maybe not quite that high. Probably more like 15% for those guys. But I really do think that it's possible. I mean, these prices. I mean, one thing is also even guys like Pablo Sandoval are going to be popular. Like he is 2.7 in Coors. Like that's weird. I mean, when do you see that? Like, it just doesn't happen. Now I know the guy doesn't have the power that he used to. He never really had a ton of power anyway. But I guess just to sum this one up for me, I mean, Hilliard even at 2.6, like maybe that's the guy. Like that's what you do is if you're going to play Colorado, put Hilliard in there. He'll be low owned and he's cheap and he's got more power than Kevin Pillar does, who everyone's going to jump on. People are going to play Kevin Pillar. This is so funny to me. It's like so funny to me, people's perception, how dumb it is. The perception, like you get Matt Kemp low owned at 3K batting 5th. And then you got Kevin Pillar, well, this is projections, but projected to be higher, much like double ownership, batting 7th. And he's nowhere near, even as bad as Kemp is right now, Kemp is still a better hitter than Kevin Pillar in Coors, in my opinion. I don't think Kevin Pillar is a good hitter. Of course, Kevin Pillar is going to hit a home run tonight because I said that. And also, by the way, he's still a fine play at 3.2K. But he's another one who might be 25 to 35% owned. Like, he really is possible. So I don't want to get involved in that in baseball. I'm sorry. Also, on top of it, we've got a pitcher who can limit damage in Gray, at least. He doesn't give up all the stuff. And then Gausman he has more blow up in him, but he also can cruise through people if he's getting them to miss. So like, I'm going to just sort of side with, okay, I'm not playing a ton of lineups tonight. I'm kind of happy I'm not because it would feel really wrong to not play some of this game, but I don't think that I'm going to play that much of it. At least as of this morning, I don't feel a ton of interest.
Okay. Now, Bobby, you have to be really, really quiet. You can't like really speak way too loudly. Okay, so you got to turn your volume down a little bit. So Cleveland's playing against Matt Harvey, right? And so if people like pay down, they'll try to find a way to play this game. The Mets just profile so beautifully against Baltimore, and like you said, everybody's going to go after these guys. And then if they don't want to do that, you could just pay double down and you could attack this Coors game. All the way out on the right, all the way at the very end of the game, of the slate, an hour after everybody else has started, you're going to have 3% owned Dodgers. And I kind of want it.
Man.
I mean, I want it. I want all of it. I didn't want to even say anything leading into this. This is what I would like to do. I would like to play A.J. Pollock. I would like to play Mookie Betts. I would like to play Justin Turner, I guess. I would like to play Cody Bellinger. I would like to look at the lineup and see what else I can play. But I'm really kind of into this.
Yeah, it has my attention too. I actually think that the projection is crazy. The one, oh no, not even the one thing. I don't really. Oh, I know what's happening. I know what happened. It is cooling down here. I mean, I already noticed it this morning.
Oh, no, Alexa has spoken.
Hey, Google, what will the temperature be at 7 p.m. tonight in Los Angeles?
The temperature today at 7 p.m. in Los Angeles is predicted to be 69 degrees.
It's a little different. That's all I got. Otherwise, it would be my favorite stack.
As I was saying, we like Will Smith at catcher.
I like everything in this spot. I don't have it, and I still like them. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we would be on a different slate. I feel like yesterday, if we would have been presented with this option, this would have been the easiest play, the easiest team we wanted to try and get to. Although it would have been hard with paying up a pitcher. We don't need to pay up a pitcher tonight. We know that. I think you do want to try and mix these guys in. I'm very confused at the projected lineup the Dodgers are rolling out, and I hope that's not the lineup they actually.
What are they showing? I didn't even look.
I hate when they do this crap where they bat like Chris Taylor. Like they only did it a couple times last year. They had Chris Taylor projected batting third, which is like so ridiculous. And also that means it leaves open for platooning. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if that's really going to be the way it is. That's what they've got right now. But yeah, all of these guys, and they're not going to be owned, so you don't need to worry about getting off the board. But I would go the way you do. It's hard to get to Mookie, even with the lack of pitching options at 6.1. But I do think he's the best play over 6K, at least at looking back at it right now. I mean, there's only a few guys, but I think he's the best of all of them. I would play Chris Taylor if he's batting third, even at 4,200. Even with the potential of him being subbed, but I don't like it as much. It just annoys me. I'll play Kike batting at the bottom of the order. I love that. I don't know this lineup. I'm just telling you right now, I don't know where this projected Dodger lineup came from, or if I'm missing something, because it doesn't make any sense to me. That's why I'm sort of like trying to figure out who I want. You want the big guys, but look, you can play Seager, Bellinger, and Muncy all against lefties. That's fine. Pollock, Betts, and Turner, if he plays, will be my. Is Turner without a doubt out or something?
I don't know.
What did I miss yesterday? This is what happens when you have family time. You miss a few things.
Best case scenario is to have Turner serve as a designated hitter on Tuesday. That's the best case scenario.
So even if he plays, I don't think we really want to.
No, I don't think so.
It's just a little worrisome that he could get. I don't know. There's ways that could go, and he's expensive anyway. So I guess that would be a worse. So let's hope he's not in the lineup and then stack it anyway. The Dodgers are a team that they're so good. Their lineup is so good, and all these other guys are such professional hitters just from being in this environment for so long. It shouldn't have killed them. And, look, Jock Peterson, I'll just mention that I think he's got like 195 last plate appearances without a home run against the lefty. So don't play Jock Peterson probably. But then again, you might knock this guy out of the game. He might only get one to get a bat against him.
I don't think he's going to even play.
He might, though. If I mean, really, without Turner – I mean, yeah, you're right. He'll probably play a different –
Is Lux back? Lux is playing now, right?
He's also a lefty who struggles against lefties and had to get sent out of the minors, so it's kind of hard.
If this were basketball, I would go 100% A.J. Pollock.
I love A.J. Pollock here. I love him. And, of course, it's baseball, so it's fluctuating, but I do like that. All right, let's sort of revisit where we're at this thing, because it's a little, it's actually a harder slate than I think I initially thought.
Yeah, for me, okay, so pitching, I say straightforward. So pitching is Valdez, and then with paying up, you could play Nola or a lower owned Corbin. I think that paying down, you could play Lindholm or a lower-owned Ian Anderson, and you could pay down twice. One guy we didn't talk about. Do you have any interest? I just heard a few takes on this. Again, another pivot in this mid-range stuff. You have any interest in Plesac or no?
I honestly hadn't considered him.
Okay.
I might have, but I'm not saying that I'm right to have not considered him. Is there some late data?
Nothing. No. Just as like another guy in that price range in a good matchup. Actually,
he's really good. So we probably should consider him.
Yeah.
We should consider him for sure.
So he's another guy you could go off the board with. And then as far as hitting goes, I think that just the way I talk this out, I feel as though the Mets are going to be much higher owned than I first thought. It's just so easy, right? I think the Mets are going to be really, really high owned. I think that are they going to be the highest owned stack on the slate?
No, Coors is absolutely
Coors
not.
For sure.
Without even a shadow of a doubt, I can promise you 1,000,000% right now, even in the morning, that Coors is going to be the most popular game on the slate.
So if that's the case, so the pay up options, you're going to get a lot of Colorado, San Francisco. I think you're going to get Cleveland's. I think that what you hit on was a couple of teams. I think Houston is going to be, like you said, I didn't even think about it, right?
Right, because there's so many stacks.
And you came right out as being like one of your top stacks, if not your top stack. So that in and of itself probably means it's going to be really low owned. And that's a place you can go. I just have this, I'm not going to do it, okay? So, I hate hedge. I hate to say, if the White Sox and Minnesota win the slate, don't come crying to me, but it could happen. And then I think it's Houston and the Dodgers are the two, like, upside, good hitters maybe. I don't even know if Houston has any good hitters anymore, but the good hitting teams that no one's going to play.
Kyle Tucker, straight from the KBO, has become their best hitter.
Right. As opposed to Cleveland, who I think everybody's going to play because of the Matt Harvey matchup, right? So I think that if you're going to go for ownership, I think you're going to try. I think the Dodgers and Houston would be kind of my two favorites. And, I even forgot to revisit Milwaukee again, who we talked about, and Atlanta, who I forgot to revisit.
Milwaukee, Atlanta, and the Mets are all really close, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
I'm starting to like these other ones a little bit better. Because I like and it sounds really dumb, Sheets. I just think the hitters are better. And I know that in Houston we can have that argument. Look, these guys didn't make their whole thing off cheating their whole lives. And it's not like all of these guys are just awful hitters. Let's not get crazy with it. Oh, historically, I'm still going to take all the historical numbers. But Houston and the Dodgers have the most long-term good hitters of any team in their lineups tonight. And they're going to be the lowest owned. And they also have a similar run projection.
When's Bregman coming back?
The Dodger thing, I do think that the temperature thing does make a little bit of a difference for me. Like,
okay.
I mean, it just annoys me. Like, I just feel like, God, we get them at, it was 80 degrees. But also, if it was 80 degrees, the run total would be almost 6,
Atlanta. I'm trying to think about where it's going to. So Atlanta, Milwaukee, Mets,
Cleveland, Houston, and the Dodgers.
Houston Dodgers.
So I'm prioritizing Cleveland, the Houston, and the Dodgers. And I'm going to look for – It's tough without the Mets. Sorry, without the Braves. That were my original team, but I think I'm going to shy away from it a little bit. The Mets, I think I can mix in somebody if I want to with either of these teams, and the same thing with Milwaukee. But I think it's going to end up being Cleveland, Houston, and LA. Maybe I'll end up with a little more Milwaukee.
Yeah.
That's just where.
And pitching wise, what do you think you're going to do? Like Valdez?
Valdez won. So we do have an extreme hitters umpire in the Nola Corbin game. So I think that actually makes it easier, though. I think the slate is already asking you to try and spend down anyway. So I think we can play our Anderson. And by the way, who by the end of the day, people are going to be on Ian Anderson. I just realized, I don't care if the projection's at 1% that he's going to be owned. He's going to be owned in double digits, I promise. People are too smart these days. It's
going to be one of those things where it might be 8% in the 10 and 25% in the 5.
Something like that, yeah. Which we had a little bit of that kind of stuff yesterday. I don't know what what's his name was. In basketball, Chris Middleton. But he was projected. He was supposed to be less than 10% the day I announced Bledsoe. But I don't know what he ended up in the small one. But in the big buy-ins, he was like 40% almost. I was like, what the hell is happening?
Wow.
He was supposed to be 10% at most. Anyway, so I'm going Valdez. Anderson, Lindblom. I know that we don't, whatever, we said the things about Lindblom, but now I can see I can play him with Anderson. I prefer Anderson at lower ownership, but I can play them together. And I think that Plesac is more in the conversation. And I'm gonna spend, maybe I'll bring it up on our show later. I'm gonna dive a little bit into some of these other guys. But I don't think we have a whole lot of other options. And I think we might just have to take one of Nola. If you're going to play a bunch of lineups, you certainly should have exposure to Nola and Corbin. I just think that with that kind of conditions, I'm not quite as interested as I was before.
I think we did a good job with this one.
I think we got it, man. All right. Well,
I got to keep my string going. I have like a sub 4K home run every day, and once again I'm not prepared. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, real quick. We got to do it real quick.
No, we can do it. We can do it. We got time.
All right, let's do it. All right, my home run. So my high buy-in or top level home run, whatever you want to call it. Boy, all the guys I liked were not top level guys, so I'm gonna have to rethink. So I'll start at the bottom, or I'll start in the middle. I'll just take, because before you do, I'll take AJ Pollock.
Okay, so I am going to, again, I'm not going to take any chalk in this one, in this contest. So my expensive.
AJ Pollock is not chalk.
No, I'm just saying in general.
Oh, no, I know.
I'm going. My expensive home run will be Santander from Baltimore.
Ooh, I love it. That's beautiful. I'm going to go with my expensive home run is going to be, and again, this is not off the board, but it will be completely unowned, Nelson Cruz.
Oh, nice.
That's actually one I would even bet on. I think he might hit a home run today.
Well, I'm going to steal one of yours then from the 5K and below range. In the 4,400s, I'm going to take Springer.
I love that one. All right, I'm going to take a step. So I'll pivot to his teammate and take Kyle Tucker.
Nice.
And then we should do one ultra cheap one.
Right. So you said
I didn't go really cheap.
No, that's fine. Oh, who we forgot to take? By the way, the best play in this contest is certainly Franmil Reyes, right?
I love Franmil Reyes. Yeah, I should have been one of mine. But I guess that just tells you what we like. We like these 38 to 4,400 outfielders. They're pretty good.
Yeah, I can't invent one under 4K.
Oh, come on. I've got a few under 3K.
Fine.
I'll give you an under 3K one that's gonna hit one.
Oh, fine. I'll do Ryan Braun.
That's an easy one. That's under 4K. I'll do it under 3.
I'm going 3K.
I'm going flat 2K, and he's gonna hit a home run too. I actually am betting calling this one right now. I look for Brantley as my other guy, but I'm gonna take Josh Naylor.
Naylor. Who's by the way, who's that call-up guy that you said, the prospect that's coming up for
what's his name?
Hell, I don't even remember the team.
It's there's a few guys at 2K minimum. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't say he's top. It's Brian Hayes. I don't know actually a ton about him. I've just heard my cousins ask me what I think about him, and I said I don't really know. I did a quick glance. Seemed to have some pretty good minor league numbers. Anyway.
Okay, I'll take one of the 3K then. I'll go Cole Tucker then.
All right, I like it. That's going to be a bold one because he's batting 9th. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in with us. Hope you join us for the next show. For Sheets, I'm Bobby saying good luck. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.
All right, so I'll see you later.